Hello. Hello. Good morning. I'm yours from Shma. And actually, we are the landscape architect design firms based in Bangkok. And we come up with this project called V-Park. And I think everyone's aware that the decreasing of the green space creates so much negative impact to the city environment, from urban heat, flooding, losing the biodiversities and the well-being. And I think Bangkok is one of the cities that facing that problems, because the more city grow, the green space will be diminished. And you can see that the city is unplanned and keep growing. And I think it's becoming the city challenge in order to find the land, and actually we are quite lacking in terms of the resources in order to implement the park. But of course, we don't want the park just putting the trees. We want the quality of the park as well, and the park need to be accessible within the walking distance. And what we found out is that even though the city is well developed, it still be the abandoned area left a lot in the city. And there are so much of different typologies, from under the expressway, along the canal, along the footpath, or even along the railway. I think this is going to become the city opportunity to use this abandoned area to turn the grey city, our unplanned city, to become more sustainable and greener city. And what we call our approach is about a small intervention and to create a bigger impact. Because we realize that after being working in Thailand in so many years, we realize that in order to develop the big intervention, is require a lot of big investment and a lot of coordination with multi-stakeholders, which take time to develop, and we can't wait because the problem is so much nowadays. So I think this approach requires 4 characteristics. Firstly, it's about infiltration, because it can be easily accessed within the walking distance among the communities, and the communities themselves can customize the program to each abandoned area. Second characteristic is about it's easier and quicker to be implemented comparing to the bigger interventions. And the third one is, since it's less complicated, it can be scalable. And lastly, I think is in order to create much bigger impact, it needs to be linked as one system and to work together. So we established this platform called V-Park. It's a platform that connecting stakeholders and resources in order to transform the abandoned area in the city to become the green infrastructure and park within the walking distance. And there are 2 important strategies that what we did is, the first one is about connecting multi-stakeholders. And each one of them has resources, whether it's the land, funding, know-how, or even volunteer. And everyone can co-invest in transforming this. I think this is going to be the opportunity if we can bring all the resources all together. And in order to do that, we need to empowering the simple tools is starting from the application that everyone can easily identify the land available in their neighborhood or whatever they find. And we have the data to analyze which land is more priority, more important to develop further. We have the guidebook to empower the basic know-how in order to do the park. And of course, we have this kind of the capacity building in various stakeholders, from the youth to the city governments, and also to the private sector, and also to the community. And of course, we designed the process to making sure that all the stakeholders has a certain role in all the process, from in finding the land, in co-designing the program, and co-design the place, and co-invest in terms of the crowdfunding, and of course co-management after the project completed. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, I think we can't just putting the trees and in an abandoned area. It needs to be the green infrastructure too. Of course, it can focus on the community, or it can be the blue and green infrastructure to mitigate the flood, or it can be the increasing the urban biodiversity, or improving the connectivity in the urban area, or even become the urban farm for the community. We started out from 5 pilots project at the first year, and then after 3 years, we've been able to scaling up to 24 of them this year. And then next year, by working closely with the local government, we would be able to expand to another 100 more next year. I would like to show you some of the projects that we already finished. The first one is a small plot of land within the city center. And then we're using this kind of the process in organizing and engaging with the students and community, come up with a pop-up park and do the crowdsourcing, crowdfunding together with the government funding, and be able to complete the first pocket park by using this kind of the platform. It's proven that it can combine with many functions in the area, from the youth function, multi-spaces and playground. The second one is right next to the river. It's within the cultural community. And as you can see, that is full of the garbage. So what we did is about to ask all the stakeholders, community to clean up the land. And then we slowly using this kind of the pop-up park as strategies to show the possibilities how the abandoned land can be developed. And then we slowly and progressively develop phase by phase. So by doing that, the community can start to use the abandoned land right away. We don't need to wait for the city budget. And the third one is more on the biodiversity, because they have a lot of existing trees. And what we did is we organized this kind of the youth activities to collecting the data about the ecology found in the area. So we further developed that data with the community as a park that focusing on this preservation and biodiversity. Another type is about to improve the connectivity along the canal. We have this kind of the typical place a lot whereby people don't want to walk because it's unsafe along the canal. And what we did is that we organized a workshop and connecting the young designer to come up with this kind of pop-up park along the canal. So people feel safe and want to walk from one point to another point. And it become like a permanent structure in some of the location to make it more vibrant and people along the community can utilize the place. Another type is about the place that connect people back to the canal, because we have a lot of canal in Bangkok, but we never using it. So with this park, we have opened up the possibilities to show the community that they can also utilize the park as a recreation and also can generate more economic value to the community as well. Another type is whereby it's focusing on the urban farm, and we're connecting the expertise to teach the community how they can utilize it for the eatable garden. I think as to conclude, all along we believe that doing the park is about authorities' job and responsibilities. But by opening up this kind of platform, we open up many models that the abandoned land can turn it to become the park and green infrastructure in many ways by combining private sector funding or progressively develop, or even combining the business model to make sure that the park can be more sustained in the future. And of course, it has opened up many and unlocked city potential by turning the abandoned land to become the park in various locations and many possibilities. And I think what we try to do is about the decentralization, because all along we believe that the resources and ability is all up to the governments. But by decentralizing the know-how, the data, and I think everyone can be part of this process, can be the driving force in develop the park. And of course, from one small intervention to the community, and then we can connect and scalable. So we slowly can turn the gray city or unplanned city to become more green in the near future. And I think the key is about to empowering the people to be part of this kind of the process, to empowering the city, because without the people, we cannot do it. And I think we believe that we all have the resources and the ability and of course the power to do so. So this is what we did as a WePark. Thank you.
Straight on. It's John from Bronzado Architects. Yeah. Do you want to? Oh, you're here. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Jason, and with me is Aramis, and we're very honored to share this work with everyone. We're Buen Salido Architects, and we begin. We're about 30 in the firm, but I begin by saying that this project is a product of not two, not 30, but 607 creatives. And to better understand the scale of this collaboration, we start with this word right here, barangay. Comparable to a village, the barangay is the smallest political unit in the Philippines and serves as the fundamental base of our national government. Today, there are more than 42,000 barangays in our 7,600 islands, each with its own elected officials and functions, a decentralized system that works because of the country's geography. Pangasinan is a province 4 hours north of Metro Manila, and its 4th district consists of these 5 municipalities, sharing between them 140 barangays. The brief was for us to standardize all 140 barangay centers, which usually come as 2 or 3 stories or else as a multipurpose court, whose main function is to be the core facility where the government services are delivered to the immediate community from food, health, and to other essential needs. Its promise is to be a bridge between the government and the people, uplifting lives through dignified social services, empowering people to participate in the decision-making process, and engaging the community through a social space that they can identify with. But despite the intent to decentralize power, a centralized authority is still felt with the current design of barangay centers, with the national government prioritizing speed, control, and cost, sacrificing the quality of these spaces. Centers are designed to be purely transactional, often devoid of identity, culture, and even basic human comfort. The result is that people are alienated from these structures. They are dispirited because of the quality of these centers. They feel excluded as their centers fail to reflect the local context, and citizens are detached, unable to create shared memories and meanings about the place due to the lack of social spaces. Now, Pangasinan's congressman recognized these failures and challenged us to find a way to standardize the design while still maintaining the character of each and every location. There was a catch, however. We were asked not to change the plans as these were already pre-approved by multiple authorities. And we were also asked to continue using low-tech conventional construction techniques to secure cost and buildability. They also asked us to focus on the exterior as a small first step to attract citizens towards the centers beyond mere transactions and as part of a larger and a more drastic improvement to the design over the coming years. All of these while working within the same budget allocated for the current design. So as we reflected on these challenges, we came to realize that these buildings are just like the people they serve. People have common values, yet we keep our own individual identities intact. And like people, buildings also have bones, a body, and a skin. Bones provide support like a building structural frame. The body is our exterior shell like the walls, while the skin, along with our clothing, provides our outermost identity and protects us from the elements like a building's outer screen. This framing of the problem helped us determine that while the bones in the body could be optimized for standardization, the skin could be reimagined for localization. So starting with the standardization, we decided to retain the post and lintel construction for the bones, but optimize the heights and roof slopes to lower the costs. For the body, CMUs are still the standard in the country despite its inefficiencies. So while we were asked not to touch the body, we still shifted the material to brick, as brick is just as low-tech, but is more sustainable with thermal insulation that fits our climate better. Part of our proposal is to actually revive the local brick industry to not only cut importation, but to also supply other projects in Pangasinan. Design-wise, its curved undulating form alludes to the ocean surrounding this coastal district. Now, establishing standardization through the bones and the body, we shift our focus on the skin next as we localize the building's character to respond and reflect its eventual context.
So as a first step to localize the skin, we added features towards better thermal comfort, since the previous design lacked responsiveness to the tropical climate. We introduced canopies for shading and widened them to create wraparound balconies as social spaces. This resulted to a larger and more usable welcome porch underneath. We also converted the openings to jalousies to let in as much air as possible. The windows and doors were all made into modules to improve costs and speed of fabrication. The skin is then introduced around the balconies as a bristle, which further protects the interiors from the harsh sun, regardless of the orientation of the site where it would be built. So this lack of a specific site presents another concern. How will the standard skin reflect the character of each barangay? And for that, we turn to the bigger picture of Pangasinan. So Pangasinan is known for various industries where we tried to draw inspiration from. They have a rich agriculture industry where we studied crop arrangements, a traditional weaving industry where we study the patterns, and even their techniques. Combining the logic from all those, we were able to derive this diamond net-like grid, which is a nod to their massive fishing industry born from having the longest coastline in the country. We developed this into a 3D network of modular panels that resembles a school of fish, an observation quickly made by the locals. Now, as you may notice, the facade is part solid to block heat and part porous for daylighting. On the solid part, we borrow from the patterns of the local weaving industry, discovering a 20-30-10 tonality ratio across the patterns, which we were able to apply to the shading of the panels. We then combine this with the symbolic colors of each municipality to establish both distinction and familiarity. And to further reinforce this distinction, the skin is envisioned to be arranged differently per barangay. With the aid of a parametric approach and in consideration for daylighting, we developed hundreds of unique arrangements for each barangay and for each structure, akin to how our faces, colors, the clothes we wear make us all unique. And who better to reflect the uniqueness of these barangays than the residents themselves? This is where the 607 creatives come in.
So the design of the panels will be crowdsourced through local art competitions, where the top 3 patterns will be awarded, one for the light, one for the mid and dark panels. The competition was launched last August, and here are some of the entries. And here are some of our own internal pattern studies, which we use to visualize the barangay centers in Mangaldan, in Dagupan, and Manawag, with the skins donning their specific municipality colors. We simulated the participatory process by creating a physical model. As mentioned, the panels are modular, fabricated off-site, and shipped to the community where the residents of the barangay themselves can volunteer to help paint the winning patterns on the panels. The result is a building that is inspired by, designed by, and crafted by the local community, which hopefully creates a high sense of care and ownership towards these barangay centers. The vision is that each barangay with their own communities can independently implement this standardized design on their own without even needing us, the initial designers. This, unfortunately, of course, opens up the project to issues of quality. And for that reason, we authored the design manual that covers everything a barangay would need to deliver the project, from concepts to Gantt charts, detailed kit of standardized parts, among other things, and is a living document that can be improved over time. Some barangays have actually started constructing their own centers independently using the standardized manual. This is the multipurpose court in San Fabian and the 2-story center in Mangaldan. We're very excited to see about 20 completed buildings by the end of the year and 20 more every year after. So to close, our aim was to balance standardization with localization. The standardized bones and body address buildability, cost, speed of delivery, while the localized skin solves tropicality and identity. The hope is that what was formerly a mere transactional experience be transformed into a social space that encourages meaningful connections, resulting in an uplifting, dignified experience. And by conceiving spaces that can be influenced by, designed by people, and even crafted by the people, we create an empowered community, reviving engagement towards barangay centers as people start to see them as a reflection of their collective visions and values. We're very optimistic that the project, no matter how small, can cause a ripple effect towards a more engaged citizenry, especially if applied successfully to all 140 barangays or even across 42,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we should go straight on to Alexis from SANALarc.
Hi. Sorry. Do you hear me? Yes. I'm really feel very privileged to be amongst these projects. Today, although we usually focus on public space, today I am going to present a project that is not about public space, but how to activate third cities with a prototype in the US in a small town. Okay, sorry. Oh. So the project is located in the Pacific Northwest, which is a very unique geography along the Great Pacific Coast. And one of the things that's quite unique about it is it's in the kind of ring of fire. So at one side you have the Cascades that are formed by volcanoes, and on the other side of the valley you have the coastal range, which creates this incredibly rich agricultural environment. So rich that the land has been settled over thousands of years. It had a very rich Native American culture who in this particular part of the Willamette Valley built these longhouses. And about 200 or 300 years ago, many settlers came to farm this very, very lush land. And with it, they also brought their own built culture with the silos and the barns and expression. And of course, with that, brought a lot of trade along the rivers and the Tertiary Valley waterways, and created an infrastructure that basically reaches from Oklahoma all the way to the Pacific of these small towns that are built along main streets. And these main streets were built pre-car and are very walkable. With that, of course, came wealth and a type of architectural expression of the, mimicking the Victorian called the gingerbread style. But again, in a more rural context, followed by, again, another phase of economic development, which is the micro, or let's say mid-sized manufacturing that took advantage of this kind of entrenched agriculture, but then advancing into kind of industrialized practices with electricity and other things, which then ended up, of course, putting a bunch of hospital infrastructure and universities and modernization, and the result of which we're all familiar with is the suburban home, the single-family residence, which is growing and growing. So what we were finding is the single-family residence, because of its use of kind of land greed, actually really diluted public life and diluted economic access, and this prolific problem that many countries have to face, which is not just affordable housing, but accession in the new generations. So our idea was to kind of build on this dream over many generations of access to micro enterprise or self-determination to open shops along with the single-family residence. And we came up with this concept of the makery, which is very much built on a few thousand-year-old model, which is the shop at the bottom and living above. So we call this kind of a foundation to stand on, and it actually introduces a new economic model. One of the problems with the single-family residence is because of modernized zoning, you end up having most of the residential land inaccessible to business. And because of this, you also create this kind of fragmentation of families that have to work remotely. Somebody will be a nurse, somebody will be, an educator, somebody will work at the shop, the kids have to get to school. And all of this across most of the US uses a very similar size 80-foot by 60-foot parcel. So we asked if we took these kind of really important elements apart and combined them into the same parcel, could we come up with a new economic model? And in the same parcel, if we do this, we can actually get 4 units on the same piece of land as a single-family house. But again, underpinning this is this kind of loss that you see many people have of what that dream is, what the dream of accession and wealth creation is for the middle class. And one of the things that's really, of course, exciting about the American dream is entrepreneurship. And as you can say, many of the big corporations actually started in the garage. So we wanted to put the garage at the core of this, and hence the idea of the makery. And many people across these small rural landscapes use these spaces. These are actually all places that exist in rural American small towns, either as second businesses to run wellness, as Etsy shops, as trying to provide fresh food, as gyms for hobbies. And this is really the loss when you ask people why they want to leave the single-family residence, is the loss of access of this kind of third identity, self-interest enterprise. So how can we kind of bring this back into this infrastructure? So we've been choosing sites across that are in a 5-minute walk to this historic infrastructure of the main street, the school, some type of recreation, the library, the cinema, to choose sites that are of this kind of 60-foot by 80-foot module. And we call it the makery. And how do we cultivate it? One of the main things is that a lot of these have a historic heritage that we have to kind of simulate within, even though we're changing the density and proposing the density. Many of them have kind of interesting ground regulations, so we're trying to uplift that so they have high floor-to-floors at the ground level and spill out and borrow the sidewalk as public space. But still keep very high-quality standards of living, which a lot of people who live in rural communities feel they have a lot of space. So 3-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units. These are places people want to grow families in. They don't want to kind of downsize. As well as access to nature, so you get above so that you can see the views, and sustainability. So when we put these together, we also feel that people still want that sense of identity. So each tower has its own kind of identity, like the single-family house. And we source most of the materials from the forestry around. So as I said, the whole Cascade Forest is around us. So how do we kind of upcycle the barn wood? How can we kind of use mass timber coming out of the Cascades? How can we build on the handcraft that is built kind of the identity of this area's gingerbread housing? And how do we make this a net zero project, right? One of the big problems with the single family house is the cost of living and the cost of operating and the cost of having a second car. So we've really worked hard to design the envelope to have kind of a low energy consumption, and studied how we could do this so that your operating cost of your home is quite low, but still have a very high quality of life, meaning kind of really nice fine finishes, really nice large kitchens, and access to views beyond. We also, because we're in rural areas, we do still have trains moving through. We have large cars. This is not kind of an urban setting by many means. And in that sense of trying to encourage people to move from their single-family house, offering common spaces so people still can have large Thanksgiving dinners, still can have kids' parties by having a shared kitchen and a larger space for dining of like 14 people. One of the other things was bringing back this gingerbread language that's quite important to the identity, as well as some of the kind of finer crafting of the wood. So this was a big part of working with the community to feel that it had a sense of belonging. And the big kind of picture idea is that if you took, 30 different parcels that are available in many of these areas, you can see the amount of land that's actually available in these. These are all the 60 by 80 foot parcels. We could actually create the same critical mass of kind of larger mixed use housing residential, getting 120 families and many, many job opportunities, all within walking distance and building nothing on the current infrastructure nor using greenfield. So this is our idea. We call it the Makery. We do try to brand it so that it can be replicable in many of the small towns across the U.S. So thank you.
straight on to the final presentation in this group of four on ethics and values, which is Aida from Abad Design Studio on the home of homes.
Okay. So how can I move to the next slide? From the green buttons. Okay. Hello everyone, this is Aida from Abad Architects. We are honored to presenting this project to you. The observation that our world is becoming more divisive and polarized is a concern that has been widely discussed and recognized. Divisive issues such as politics, religion, and social values often evoke strong emotions and lead to polarization. When people identify strongly with certain beliefs, they may have less open to understanding alternative viewpoints. Social interaction creates possibility of interaction between individuals from different backgrounds and express them to diverse cultural norms and values. Individuals starting to share their experiences, perspective, and emotions. Feeling of listening and being listened to starting to grow. Social interaction create more compassion within the community. Meaningful relationships starting to create, leading to a more collaborative community that would care about their environment. Social interaction can connect and less disintegrate. Architecture can indeed play a significant role in shaping and facilitating healthy social interactions. The design of a physical spaces can influence human behavior, emotions, and communication patterns. We hope to see that the home of home could facilitate better interaction with a view to creating a better understanding within communities. In Iran, we have certain conventions and norms for residential buildings that are not necessarily in line to better the quality of life of the people. The default approach within the property sector is to gain maximum sellable areas. This often comes at the cost of quality living and healthy social interactions. Hence, the result would be masses of unsurprising residential blocks that create border conditions. We think breaking from the conventional layout could help achieve our goal, a new kind of a layout, namely an interaction-enabling layout, creating spaces that prioritize and facilitate social engagement, collaboration, and community building. In Iran, there has been a solid divide between private and public life, rooted in millennia-long tradition, which in turn be influenced by the geography and social economic circumstances of the people of this land. Traditional Iranian architecture often includes courtyard houses with private interior spaces shielded from public spaces. This reflects the importance of privacy in our culture. Traditionally, people in Iran have two distinct modes of living expressing themselves. One that is for inside, like in private gatherings, and one that is for outside. The daily routine in public with certain codes of behavior being dictated by the authorities. The Home of Home attempts to question this type of censorship and facilitate more authentic mode of interaction within the communal areas of the building. What if neighbors could be exposed to each other in a safe, respectful environment? What if they do more together and share more together? The concept of this building is rooted in a vision that in a world of isolation and egocentric success, we must seize every opportunity to interact with fellow human beings in meaningful ways. We must seize every opportunity to share and learn from each other. This helps create a community that is more tolerant of differences and more keen to create a better environment. The Home of Home is an embodiment of a vision to blur traditional boundaries between the private and public. There is a spectrum ranging from the public to private. On one side of the spectrum, you have the street level that is completely public. On the other side, there is inside the unit like bedrooms. Then there are areas in between and communal areas, the corridors, terraces, and so on. The home of home provides a setting that encourages residents to create a community within a community, the inner circle being the users of the building and the outer circle being the urban community as a whole. Throughout the building, the communal areas are designed as such, so they encourage social interaction, promote dialogues between the users, and help create a sense of belonging. There are certain spaces dedicated to social activities among the residents, such as cooking, farming, playing music, working out, and so on. These social interactions would bring the community together and increase the feeling of empathy and happiness. Here and within the inner circle, people could bring their fur inside, outside. They're encouraged to see and to be seen by others. The transparent surfaces in some areas allow visual connections between the users, while other areas provide family and individual privacy. The quality of the spaces bringing closeness between individuals and safe spaces to communicate their thoughts, emotions, and ideas. The communal setting are playgrounds to residents to feel comfortable to express themselves and share their perspectives, which can lead to a better understanding and empathy among community members. Cell, as a part of a larger mass, is a basic unit of this whole cohesive integration, representative of individual with a unique identity. The concept underscored the importance of both individuality and interconnectedness, highlighting the harmonious collaboration and proximity among the components, be it in social, organizational, or broader community context. Individual can pursue a degree of privacy at each of these cells. The cells are accumulating, stacking up, staggering on top of each other, so they create spaces of social interaction for the users called shared terraces. Void as an infrastructure intrudes itself into the massing, organized thresholds and breakout areas as a space of interaction throughout the building. The void acts as a vertical courtyard connecting the building to the ground and immediate surrounding, and grows all the way to the top floors and the rooftop and connect back the building to the city on the western side. The void brings daylight to each cell. There are plenty of shared terraces of various sizes spread out within the internal vertical courtyard of the building. Series of smaller shared terraces created a threshold between the flats on each floor, giving the neighbors the chance to socialize and create a sense of belonging and neighborhood for the residents. The building houses cafes, co-working spaces, a gallery, entertainment venues on the lower level, which the public has access to. The building also features communal areas such as dining area, a communal room, and a spa residential floor that only residents have access to. On the rooftop, there's more shared spaces, encouraging the residents to do more activities together, such as farming, walking, and hanging out on the sun deck. Shared facilities have been designed to promote collective living for the intended user, while each flat also provides necessary amenities for a comfortable private life. Users could decide how much they want to spend their time living collectively and how much privately. Living rooms, which typically serve as a more social spaces, are laid out in a way they're looking at each other on each side of the void to foster more interaction. This arrangement creates the possibility of visual connection between the neighbors and the vertical courtyard, and it would bring more closeness and unity within the community. Bedrooms being at the end of each floor plate and looking outside indicate an emphasis on privacy and connection to the external environment. There is a spectrum from semi-public to semi-private and private spaces on each floor, from shared terraces, living rooms, and bedrooms. This interaction enabling layout creates a balance between social and individual. Here is a floor plan, is a typical floor plan of the residential area, showing some of the residential units. And this one is another typical showing the combination of residential and shared spaces on the western side with a spa room on the next. The building is opened up at the ground level to be more permeable and for public access, and there are several public uses such as cafe, gathering, co-working spaces. This allows to neighborhood and creates more connection on the ground level between the residential building and in the immediate surrounding. So at the end, we hope there are more connection and less disintegration. Thank you.